Nicodemus here. Easy topic of the day. Why do people suffer so much?
It's funny, easy topic of the day. Maybe it is simple. I don't know, necessarily easy to practice. It's part of this game of life. It seems that there's this mechanism of human beings where we forgot. Almost everybody comes here, thinks they're a body, forgets that they're connected to God forever, and then plays the game of life like a character, forgetting that they're connected to the source beyond anything, even in the game that they can perceive. Or even it's almost like that. In the East, they would call it Maya, like an illusion or a hypnosis, right? So if you go back to the beginning, what the Course says is that this is the detour into fear. So we're talking in symbols here, almost like telling a story. This is what was told in the Bible and like the Old Testament, Adam and Eve, right? Don't bite of the tree of knowledge, and now they're suddenly naked and they feel like they were kicked out of the kingdom. Well, the Course says they weren't kicked out, they walked out. The way it explains it in the Course is like we walked out of heaven and we made another voice, like a harsh voice that was other than God. So we made that voice as a way to play. You think about the fall of like Satan, Lucifer, right? Satan was an angel, and then the fallen angel. Well, rather than make it like Satan, like an entity or anything like that, just look at it symbolically, because all the stories are symbolic of the fall from grace, if you will. And the fall from grace is the making of another voice of the ego. So the Course is something really profound, and this explains it. Actually, I'll just give you really basic distinctions from the Course. When I say basic, they're major distinctions, but they're fundamental and pretty easy to understand when you just, the Course says it always comes down to a question: who is my father? It was like Star Wars, like I am your father. Like the question always comes down to who is my father. So either God created me, that which makes the creator God the father, mother, father, whatever, how we describe it. We're using words and it doesn't really matter. We're talking about God. If God is the father, that means I'm a creation and I'm created as God created me. If the ego is my father, that means I'll forever be a body, afraid. Death is everywhere in chaos. And all I'll see is damnation and hell, and that's what I'll experience. But he says in the Course, he's like, but how can the ego be your father if you made the ego? So just think about it for a moment, which means that we made this whole dream of separation to play God, to be like, I'll find heaven for myself. That's how powerful. So all of this is what the Course would call the tiny mad idea, made manifest, and it manifested a body, me, in a world, and a believing that I am a separate being. Suffering is, once you believe that, and that's reality, suffering is inevitable. Because what happens is once we believe that we're a separate body in this world, you're now open to two very distinct thought systems. And one of them is built on fear, and the other is built on love. One of them is the teacher is the ego, and the other is the Holy Spirit, the higher self, whatever you want to call it. So that ego voice is only suffering. The whole premise is suffering because it's built on a lie of separation. So if you don't realize that, your life is destined to just suffer. If you realize the hoax that we played on ourselves, and that there is only God and Spirit, the Holy Spirit, and you, the Christ, are all one, but it's not a reciprocal relationship. Like God created you, you didn't create God. Once we start to realize that, we're up only at home in God. Nothing else will work, no matter how much stuff you try to get to fill you up in the world and manipulate the dream in any way you try to see fit. Suffering is ingrained in it. And most people don't understand that or know that. That's why the Course calls this is the detour into fear. It doesn't mean the world's bad. It's neutral. It's nothing. It can then be used for spirit purpose. But that's not why we come. We come to play out separation in the beginning. But what happens is through pain and suffering, when we suffered enough, it's like the soul goes, or the spirit, if you will, is like, I want out. Wait, hold on. There's got to be another way here. Which in the end, that's the use of time. The Course says the correct use of time is to be used solely as a means for regaining eternity. If you use time for anything else, you're using it for destruction and suffering, and you just don't even realize it. And look around at the world that we see. That's why everyone's suffering. They just don't realize it's a hypnosis and it's the Maya in the East, they call it. It's like you can't think about this. You come as a body being born by other bodies in this dream where your body's decaying every moment, one step closer to the end of you as a body, which that itself is freaky to think about for most people. And they're so afraid of it in their own little private thoughts, in their own little container of flesh. Like, how is that not hell? If you don't realize that I am spirit and I am eternal, one with God forever, you can't do anything. Everything is suffering. Even the things that you think are pleasurable in this game are just suffering masked as pleasure. I know it's like, and people, I tell people, like, I wish it's the best news ever, but it's not good news at all for the ego. The ego, it's almost like it resists and just fights against it, and which is why the first obstacle to peace is that when you have peace, you want to get rid of it. People are like, why am I suffering? It's like, because when you have peace, you want to get rid of it. There's something in us that does not want to be at peace. So when you start to understand that's why you're suffering, and it's like a teacher in India said, you have a thief in your house. You have to start learning how the thief works. Not because you want some from the thief, but you're tired of getting robbed. And the thief is only suffering. So when you start to realize that, you start to turn away from it. And you turn to spirit, to source, to the light, which is, I am spirit. The light has come. And then all the dark days of suffering and disaster. And then, of course, goes your dark dreams of disaster are gone. All the suffering is just nothing in the end. That it takes a journey of the life of this manifestation to realize that. And that's why we have a very amazing opportunity to transcend suffering in this experience.